Hello, everyone. Good evening. We'll get started in just a minute. It's great to see so many people arriving here tonight. Feel free to say hi in the chat box. And oh, great to see everyone saying hello. You can also you can let us know if this is for anybody, if it's your first webinar, because I think there's been a few new people coming in. And yeah, just be great to know if it's your first one or if you see a few familiar names. Hello, hello. All right, first one in a while for Richard. Oh, first one for Natasha. Welcome. Welcome, Francois. Okay, first time for Russ. Is it Russ? I hope I've got that right. First in a while. Yeah, good to have you back, Steve. First one for Jose. All right. Or Jose, pardon me if I got that wrong. Okay, we're going to dive into some interesting things tonight. So I'll just wait for Mark to arrive and then we'll get going. All right, it's the first one for Madison as well. Welcome. We've got a few different twists on it tonight. There's Mark.
Oh,
there
yeah.
you go. Hello, hello.
Hi.
I'm
Wow.
having trouble hearing you. There we
go. Cold, windy evening here.
I know. You look like you're in the dark a little bit. Well, I probably am too.
Yeah.
Oh, there we go. Now I can see myself as well.
Yeah, well, I think it's not great, but just looking out of a very dark window. So, yeah.
It's dark out there at 6 o'clock. You know, sometimes we used to finish these webinars and it would still be bright and sunny outside. So, okay. So I want to welcome everyone. We've got quite a few new people, it looks like. Mark and I have been running these webinars on a monthly basis, just for a refresher for some people, and for other people just beginning their journey of education around why pain persists and something called central sensitization. And I'm sure Mark will say this too, but the science is always, the research is always moving to tell us more and more and more. But we try to give you what we know so far. And tonight's webinar, we're going to cover the basics to begin with, and we're going to move into something really interesting that I've been exploring around other ways to build out your resilience in the face of chronic conditions, chronic fatigue, chronic pain, or even things like anxiety. So yeah, Mark, I'll turn it to you.
Sure. Yeah, it's great to see so many new people, and yeah, welcome on behalf of the Bill Nelems Pain and Research Center to our presentation around chronic pain, central sensitization, and just helping patients develop a better understanding of what happens in chronic pain. This is sort of one of our foundational workshops that we do every 4 to 6 weeks, because we just find that people or patients coming into the clinic often don't really have an idea about chronic pain. So instead of trying to explain to everybody individually, it's much better doing it in a group. We can reach more people, it's more efficient. And then we can exchange some ideas in the chat. So just for those who are joining that are new, this would be looked at as sort of a group visit. We just want you to respect one another's confidentiality so that people are sort of free to express and ask questions in the chat and that they're comfortable. That's all we really ask. So yeah, I'm going to turn it over to Madeline, and then I think I'm going to try and make this black space behind me disappear.
Okay, yeah, sounds like magic. Okay,
Yeah.
great. So, oh, it's one big black space now. For those of you that haven't met us before, Mark is one of the pain physicians at the clinic, and I'm Madeline. I've been running the programs now for about 3 years, the online programs, and we're always trying new things, you know, hearing from people like you who are living with pain, letting us know what you need. And so we're always open to feedback because that's where our courses get created, is from you. So, all right. Yes, you could put like a fake screen behind you, Mark, if you wanted to, but
Yeah, I'm not
fine.
that technically gifted with Zoom, but you know, I've only been doing it for a few years. I haven't discovered all the ins and outs. Yeah, I guess I should have
All
said
right.
I'm one of the physicians where we founded the Bill Nelems Clinic about 4 years ago. And you know, my background is more from the interventional perspective, but I also have a background in anesthesia and family medicine. So you know, look at things more broadly. So yeah,
Great.
great.
So let's dive in.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to start with told you a little bit about us. And if you still want to see our squares, you can change your view to a gallery view. And then you can see our little heads, our talking heads on top of the slide. So you might find tonight has a lot of information. You might leave with more questions, and that's not unusual. It's a big concept sometimes to get around. And I see a lot of people like to refresh themselves in this class and come back, and just as a reminder, because it's hard to remember this in the face of pain. And you'll see why. Okay, so first of all, if you have access to your computer, we want to start with just 4 questions. We've kind of asked the first one already. If you could answer 4 questions in a poll that lets us know a little bit more about you, and then we know, you know, where you are in your journey a little bit more clearly, and tailor it more to you. So you should be able to see, I'm just going to launch a poll. And again, if you have access to your computer, you should see some questions arising up on the screen. And if you could just take a minute to answer some of the questions, hopefully you can see it. And I don't see anybody answering yet, so I'm wondering if it's up there. Can you see it, Mark?
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely.
Oh, good. Okay. People are answering now.
Yeah.
Great.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, good. Yeah, just take a couple of minutes, minute or two, just for 4 questions. And then we'll have a look at the answers. And this is all anonymous, by the way, when I post polls. So yeah, I'm just wondering, Lisa, you can't see our videos. You might navigate to your view and click on gallery view. Is it a different layout? I think Zoom did some updates, so it might look a little bit different.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the updates are. Excellent. So we've got a lot of people answering the questions here. Okay. So I'm just going to end the poll there. Okay, Zoom just didn't update. That's why it took me a few minutes to get on tonight. Great. Thank you. Wow, we almost had everybody answer. So that's amazing. All right, let's just end it there.
Hmm.
And excellent. So let's just have a look for a moment and see. So yeah, first time taking the class, we're about 50-50. So if you
Well,
know, for those of you that are new tonight, you know that you can repeat this class as many times as you want. So nobody is new to this by the looks of it. Nobody has experienced pain for under 1 year. Most, if 41% from 1 to 5, and
mhm,
then 5 to 10, a little bit less. And then the majority of people, 44%, have had pain here for over 10 years.
mhm,
Yeah, that's a significant period of time.
mhm,
Any period of time is. So this is going to be really quite important
mhm.
information because 33% have never heard the term central sensitization.
Well, I'm not,
Yeah,
I'm
so
not surprised because it's not
yeah,
really explained well, by the medical profession. It takes time to explain. I think it's a process. I don't even know that a lot of physicians necessarily understand the term central sensitization. They might use it, but I'm
no,
not
that's
sure
right.
how well they understood it. It's kind of an evolving concept, even for those of us who deal with it a lot.
Yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
Well, good. Can't wait to dive into this then. I think so. And 30% are starting to understand it. And I didn't add one for somebody that gets it and knows it and uses it. So if that was you, sorry, I missed you. You're probably not here.
Yeah, right. You could
So,
be teaching
what have
this.
you found as the greatest challenge in your journey? And I just wanted to get a quick snapshot of that. And what I'll do is I can get the results at the end, and then I take that information and then funnel it back into our programs. So thank you
Mhm,
for answering that. So I have a quick peek here. Movement and exercise and emotional challenges are top of mind, and employment and job issues, yeah, which leads to financial stress, which
mhm.
is very stressful. I just want to make a note that next Monday night we have Neil Pearson, who is really the person to talk to when it comes to movement and exercise. So if that's your challenge, make sure that you're here next Monday night, and we've got him coming in to talk to us.
Absolutely. Yeah, he's really good.
Okay, great. Okay, good. So one of the things from that poll that you can see, if you have been struggling with pain for quite some time, you are not alone. You're in the right place, you're in good company, and the people here understand what it's like to live with ongoing pain, the struggles that come with it, the frustrations, and because it's often hard to sometimes talk to your friends and family and the people around you because it is such an invisible condition, and it
Mhm.
can feel very isolating. So I'm glad that you're here. Okay, so Marco, I'll let you
Mhm.
uh, out of the gate tell us about acute and chronic pain.
Right. I think, acute pain, most people are really familiar with. Acute pain is what you experience when you burn yourself, cut yourself, sprain your ankle. It's immediate. It's there as a protective mechanism to guard you. In other words, if you burn your hand, you pull it away. If you sprain your ankle, it's sore, tells you not to put weight on it, etc. Right? In chronic pain is not just acute pain that lasts longer. Um, People have a tough, and doctors have a tough time understanding what happens in chronic pain. There are changes that occur in the central nervous system, which involves the brain and the spinal cord, that makes the body more sensitive to stimuli that shouldn't be that painful. And we'll talk more about that tonight. So what I just want people to remember is that chronic pain is not just acute pain that's lasting more than 3 months. There are changes that occur in our nervous system, which we'll talk more about.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. I think that's such a key point, because there is a point where, acute pain, you're told to, from your body, that you need to protect yourself. You've hurt yourself, you're in danger, you've sprained your ankle or something like that. Whereas chronic pain it shows up differently, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
In the brain and the spinal cord.
But unfortunately, we still think that we need to protect ourselves overly, and we, through no, fault of our own, we adopt behaviors that sometimes lead us to be overly protective because we're experiencing pain and we don't understand why we're experiencing pain. So it's sort of a negative situation in where you're not actually helping yourself necessarily, because in what we know about acute pain is that the healing usually takes place within the first 3 to 6 months, and then why we're experiencing pain after that is really important, and we'll talk more about that.
Right. Yeah, that's where it can get very confusing.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have a sprained ankle, this is acute pain, and we really need that. So for example, if I'm hiking and I go over on my foot and I sprain my ankle, I'm immediately going to get a message that comes straight from my ankle, right up my leg, up my spinal cord, into my brain, and tells me, warning, protect yourself. Something's wrong here. Pay attention. And what will I do? I will stop. I will probably try to put my leg up. I'll try to figure out what's going on. I'll take the weight off, and I'll probably try to hobble my way back home without putting any more pressure on it. So in a case like that, in acute pain, I really need that protective message to tell me to get to grab my attention and tell me to do something.
Mm-hmm.
And usually I can. Usually you might have to go to the hospital, or you might have to put a Band-Aid on, or more. But there's an action that is required in acute pain, and that's like a harm alarm that's sounding inside your body to protect you. So Mark, do you want to talk about this, the other pain that we're talking about tonight, for example?
So chronic widespread pain, or just chronic pain, we spoke about briefly the changes that occur in the nervous system. And what we mean by this is that a lot of the chronic pain can't be explained by a specific nerve being involved. It often is more diffuse, triggered by changes in weather, atmospheric pressure, mood, or a number of other factors. So the sort of poster child for chronic widespread pain is fibromyalgia. Not everybody with chronic pain has fibromyalgia. Obviously, you could have chronic back pain, chronic other issues, but fibromyalgia lends itself to the explanation because in fibromyalgia, one, there's no diagnostic test you can do. There's no blood test or lab test. It's a clinical assessment of the patient. Sometimes you can do tests to rule out certain things, but in patients with fibromyalgia, the pain can vary from widespread areas that change sometimes on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. They cannot be explained on what we would call a neuroanatomical basis. In other words, if you hurt your hand, there's a nerve that conducts the pain from your hand. In fibromyalgia, the pain moves around. It can be related to light touch or pressure, things that are not necessarily painful. Other features of fibromyalgia include unexplained fatigue, muscle cramps, nausea, sometimes irritable bowel, irritable bladder, all sorts of like achy joints where there's no arthritis in the joint or minimal arthritis. So fatigue, eye changes, vision problems, and these are about, a few that make it up, and they cannot be explained, as I say, on a specific nervous system basis. It's more a generalized change that happens in our nervous system. So other forms of chronic pain are not dissimilar in that we know that there's a change in the underlying nervous system. So
right. Yeah, fibromyalgia is kind of like the example of chronic pain, hey, where you can see that it's more of a system problem now.
Correct.
That it's really hard to just go and get a solution for.
Until you understand what's
of,
happened.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So that would be an example of ongoing pain where something else is going on.
Right. And patients with fibromyalgia are often very sensitive to multiple things: smells, chemical stimuli, perfumes, light touch, pressure, changes in mood can affect them, etc., etc. So it's like the central nervous system is on hyper alert, and that happens in other forms of chronic pain as well, where it takes less stimulus or irritation to trigger a response in the nervous system.
Right. And the key word being nervous system, as opposed to one particular area of the body. And that's what we're going to expand into tonight.
Right.
So there is something else going on here with chronic pain. And if we don't know this, we continue going back to, which there's nothing wrong with that, treating that part of the body that hurts. And sometimes that's absolutely essential and necessary. But after 3 to 6 months, there are, as Mark said, there's other changes that take place that also need to be addressed. Because, we have this epidemic of chronic pain, and over 50 million adults in the United States, and we're some of them right here in Canada, 20% of Canadians. And if you just think about this for a moment, globally about 1.2 billion. So it begs the question, why is this when medications and injections are more effective than ever, and we have more pain clinics than we've ever had? So what else is going on here? And that's the question that people have started to ask, many decades ago. What is going on here when pain persists? And this is where we move into something called nociplastic pain. And this is chronic pain.
Right. You want to take this, or do you want me to?
You can take this.
Yeah, so the term for chronic pain it used to be neuroplastic, now called nociplastic. Noci meaning a stimulus, a unpleasant stimulus generally, and plastic means the ability to transform, change. The causes are not fully understood, but there's thought to be a dysfunction of the central nervous system, where the processing of pain signals has become distorted and sensitized. Okay, so all pain is interpreted within our nervous system, within our brain, our central nervous system. And so what happens is that the brain starts to interpret signals that are that should be safe or of very minimal intensity as being quite painful, out of proportion from what is necessary, right? And this is not a defect of the person. It's not anybody's fault. It's a change that happens in the nervous system. The other thing that we need to remember is that pain is a very individual experience. People, experience pain completely differently. And it's not just a physical experience, it is an emotional experience as well. So you can't tell someone that they can't be experiencing pain just because you can't see something obvious. It is a unique experience to each individual and I think we need to recognize that. And we also recognize that as I say, there is a physical and emotional, psychological experience that contributes towards pain. It's not just something physical like a cut, or a burn.
Yeah.
That's really important.
That is really important, because we all know here that there's an emotional response to pain. We're not having pain here and not having an emotional response.
Right.
And it lights up those pathways as well. The
Mm-hmm.
other thing I want to mention here is, when Mark's talking about it being an individual experience, you can have abnormalities on, say, an X-ray or a CT scan and have no pain.
Mm-hmm.
You can also have no abnormalities and have a lot of pain.
Right.
So, and I think this can be so confusing for people because we look for the source and maybe we're not finding anything. And, you can
Mm-hmm.
feel like, like you're making it up, or maybe somebody's even kind of gave you that idea. And
Right.
we just want to
Right.
make that clear that you can absolutely have pain and not have something very specific going on. Right, Mark?
Yeah, you can't use a CT or an MRI or imaging to measure someone's pain. It's an individual experience. You can have minimal findings on imaging and experience a lot of pain. You can have severe findings on imaging and the patient might not necessarily have much pain. So it's not there is no accurate imaging lab modality to measure pain. It's a personal individual experience, and it's how we process these signals that's really important. And what we do in many of the other courses that add on to this is we look at how we can manage this processing in a better, healthier way. But I think you have to understand what's going on first in the nervous system before you can manage it.
Yeah. So I just want to check in and see, is this making sense so far? Or you might be just kind of starting to, get your mind around it. And you can, Paul says, when people don't understand and how they look upon you. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's where you have to find people that do understand, that you don't have to feel that. Yeah. Kathleen says fibromyalgia is very tiring and makes me feel alone. Yeah. Not a lot of people understand it. Yes, especially when it's not something anyone can see.
Absolutely.
Yes, and I've been told I was making it up. Yeah, and that it compounds the stress. So I think the key thing about that is that really sucks being made to feel that way when you know that your pain is real. And yeah, it's hard to describe what's going on. And also at the same time to really gravitate towards groups like this where you have that validation, because all pain is real. Your pain is real. All pain is real. Nobody makes this stuff up. Like, yeah, really. And yeah, so you can feel like you're going crazy. Yeah, so Lisa, then you felt validated. Yeah, I almost think this is one of the biggest stressors that people go through, it seems, like this invalidation, because it is so variable and invisible.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And yeah, Gail, this is the question. Should you ignore your pain and push through it, especially if it's distorted? This is a great, whoops, I almost fell off my chair there. I got excited. That's the question. And we're going to talk a little bit about that tonight, but I really, please come back next week, because Neil will really answer that question for you about, because how many people here have pushed through their pain and ended up in a flare up and paid for it for the next few days or the next week? Yeah, Kelly. So that's, 100%. Yeah. So that's not the answer. And doing nothing is also not the answer. And so we have to move in this in-between area that we're going to touch on a little bit tonight, but more next week.
And some patients have also found it helpful when we do the webinars to bring their significant other or spouse or whoever into the program to just try and demystify it for them, because it's hard to explain, right?
That's actually a great idea. Yeah. Thanks for mentioning that. So Mark, why don't you take us through what is central sensitization and how does that relate to chronic pain?
Okay, so central sensitization is what we think is the mechanism underlying most forms of nociceptive or neuroplastic pain conditions, right? So in central sensitization, if you can think about it, the central nervous system, which is the brain and the spinal cord, is in a state of, let's think of it as hypervigilance or hyperreactive to stimuli. So stimuli that are normally moderately or mildly uncomfortable or shouldn't be uncomfortable at all can be interpreted as painful because of changes that have happened in the nervous system. The nervous system is almost like it's ramped up on hyper alert and overreacts to stimuli, basically, through no fault of your own. It has become ramped up. The receptors, the way it processes things, it's almost like it overcompensates, overreacts to stimuli. And that's what's kind of happening. It's a simplistic way of putting it, but that kind of explains it.
And so stimuli that that you're talking about can be heat, it can be touch, it can be sound, it can be it is a movement. It can also be internal stimuli like emotions and stress. That it's like your nervous system is hypervigilant in picking up any kind of external stimuli and magnifies it into your body. Is that accurate?
Yes, like an example would be, say, someone with fibromyalgia, where you just gently touch them or hug them, and their partner might hug them, and that can be experienced as uncomfortable, which then, obviously, has all sorts of ramifications, because then they don't want to be touched or hugged, and then, it has an emotional effect on the relationship. That's just one example. Or people with chronic back pain, where, yes, they have some disc or whatever pathology, but that has settled down, but they experience ongoing pain, and they think there must be something new going on where there necessarily isn't, but they're still experiencing pain because even some small stimuli coming from that area is really uncomfortable. It's because your brain's interpreting it as really uncomfortable, because we know that most inflammation, most damage settles down by 3 to 6 months. And then, and then in those people or those patients who experience ongoing pain, there are changes that happen in the nervous system to make it hypersensitive.
Yeah. So it's almost, I think this is coming up in a slide, but it's almost like your body has learned too well how to protect you. So this is it might sound like bad news, but this is actually good news, because we can start to turn down the dial of pain, but it might require a little bit of a different approach. Then it actually gives us more options when we are looking at the whole system and not just the site of the pain. But just to recap, that your pain is real and all pain is real. And this type of pain, chronic pain, nociplastic pain, is just as real and painful as a physical injury that you can see on an X-ray. So I just want to let that sink in. It doesn't mean that it's less painful or it's not as bad. It can actually be, quite painful. And it's because our bodies are doing this.
Right. I mean, just to go back, pain is a unique individual experience. It's a bit like telling someone they shouldn't feel upset, or they shouldn't. I mean, that's how they feel. You can't just say, well, don't feel that. Pain is unique. It's unique to each and every one of us. It's a very personal experience of how we interact with our environment. And I think we need to recognize that. So what happens in central sensitization, in the top one is an example of a normal situation where, say, for example, you have 3 levels of pain going in.
Like, say, a scratch or a
like
bump or
like exactly like a cut or something, or a burn. The primary afferent, that is the part of the nervous system that carries the message from your hand or your finger or whatever gets burnt to your spinal cord, which is the dorsal horn, and then it whips up the spinal cord, and how you interpret it is it's the equal amount of it's an appropriate response. You pull your hand away, it burns, and it goes away.
it's accurate.
It's accurate. In chronic pain, there is a modulation that starts to take place in the nervous system over time, usually after months and months. And those 3 levels of pain are now start to be interpreted as 5 levels of pain. And these are changes that happen in the spinal cord and the central nervous system, where it's unable to say, oh, it's that. Okay, so let's react appropriately. It overreacts. And then with further modification of the nervous system, it doesn't take much stimulation to trigger the nervous system. So even something that should be very mildly irritating or even non-painful, like a light touch or pressure, is interpreted as painful. That's the central sensitization component. So patients will complain of, even just gentle touch or light pressure or just gentle movement can even be uncomfortable because their nervous system has become sensitized.
Right. And sometimes it doesn't require anything. You just have a lot of pain.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, and there are so many factors that influence this, from emotional to seasonal, weather, anxiety. It just goes on and on. But the nervous system is almost looking for, like a reason. It's like it's on pins and needles, as it were, and it doesn't take much to trigger it.
Yeah. So the good news about this is that changes in the nervous system can be reversed or dialed down, but the treatment changes or expands to include the whole system. And this involves tools to address the nervous system, to calm the nervous system, to calm the whole body, to calm muscle tension. Through a lot of classes we do through deep breath work, through gentle movement that calms and also challenges the body at the same time. To teach the brain that the signals it's receiving from the body are actually safe. So this involves, first of all, the baseline of calming down the nervous system, calming down the body, calming down the stress levels, the emotions, and the muscle tension. And then starting to slowly challenge yourself in a way that is intentional and safe. So what was I going to say about that? Yeah. So somebody asked about movement, because we want to avoid moving in this boom bust cycle, because it's not good to not do anything, because then other problems start. And I mean, let's face it, then our world gets very small, and probably your world has probably shrunk a bit, just having chronic pain. But we don't want to stay too small, because it's actually good for our body to have some low-grade stress to motivate it to move little by little outside of the comfort zone and to expand. So yeah, Mark, do you want to talk about all the things that just quickly, kind of briefly give people an idea?
So, we've sort of spoken about this overactive, hyperactive nervous system. So some of the tools of the toolbox that patients have found helpful and that over time have been proven to be of benefit, and Some people need more of some and less of the other, but we look at it as, a whole toolkit. So first of all, just understanding pain. We find that once patients have some knowledge as to a little bit more about chronic pain, they can start the process or the journey of making more informed decisions and turning down their pain through some tools. Having good social supports so that they don't feel isolated and alone, that they are understood, is really useful. Modest physical and exercise activity can be very helpful. This does not mean you need to take out a gym membership. This means that you need to look at what you can achieve yourself in terms of realistic goals, in terms of movement and function, so that you can start. Because without this, if you have no goal and no function, well, then you're not going to go anywhere, or less chance that you're going to go anywhere. And the exercises need to be realistic, things that you can achieve, as opposed to unachievable things that set up a negative feedback loop. We want a positive feedback loop. In other words, I managed to walk 3 blocks. I managed to collect my mail. I managed to do this. I paced myself. That is a positive feedback, as opposed to, I didn't climb Mount Everest today. Geez, I'm a real failure. Okay, well, I guess I'm, not going to do anything after that, right? I didn't climb Mount Everest today either. Improving your sleep, really important. We know that without sleep, the body can't heal, or it has a real tough time healing. So we did have some webinars on sleep. We should probably get another one up and going. But yeah, sleep is really important. It increases your energy, your mood, your ability to cope. If I have been up all night when I did a lot of anesthesia for 3 nights in a row, I was a particularly unpleasant person with very poor coping skills emotionally and otherwise, just as an example. So sleep deprivation is really important to look at. Engaging in meaningful activity like goal setting, achievable goals, improving your sense of self. I spoke a little bit about that. Self-management techniques such as relaxation, breathing, visualization, being aware of your body and what you can do realistically, right? Mood improvement, looking at if we are depressed or anxious, and how we can perhaps manage that through various techniques and therapies. Some lifestyle changes are really important. We have to look at our diet. There are some things in the diet that are pro-inflammatory, highly processed foods, weight gain, etc., have negative impacts on how we manage stress, how we manage our pain. And then last, some of the medical management, such as medications, counseling, and what some of us do, like some of the injections and interventions, which are a tool. They are not the only tool that we should be using to manage our pain. How's that for a quick summary?
Yeah, thank you. That was yeah. So if you're looking at this going, oh my gosh, that's just like too much for me to do. I want to remind you that taking one of these things, one shift, one change, it's like a mobile, that you would hang from, over a baby's bed, those mobiles. One affects the rest of them. So sometimes just setting clear boundaries around your time and your space and your relaxation time, that's good pain management. Sometimes just making one shift in how you're eating, it may not sound like it's related to pain, is totally related to pain. And maybe just taking that, that walk to the mailbox back and forth, it might just feel really good to get out, but it's also really good pain management. So you can see how the choices and the options that we have start to expand. And we have, classes to support you in some of these things. So I just have a question to ask everyone that's here. How many people have noticed that when their stress increases, their pain increases? Has anybody already noticed that that relationship between stress and pain? Yes. Yes, it's like it is. It's like a teeter-totter. Always yes, yes. Okay. Yeah.
Hmm.
So you guys, you already know this. You don't need to be told that. Kelly says it depends.
Hmm.
Yeah. So managing stress, and it may sound like, well, I'm just managing stress so I can manage my pain, but stress and pain actually show up in the body in the same regions, in the same way, in the brain, I should say. So when you're targeting one, as in stress, you're actually targeting pain as well.
Hmm.
And also, yeah, less rest during stress. So there is a very different way. So if you have a perfectionist personality that likes to just do it all and get it all done, just I want you to just take that part of you and just sit it over the side for a moment before we start to try to do too much. And doing one thing at a time, adding in things so you can actually see what is making a difference is usually more helpful over time.
Right. I
Yeah.
think, I think what we've discussed, just being aware of how these various factors might impact your chronic pain is already the first step in helping yourself. Otherwise, you're just going round and round wondering why you're getting frustrated. I think
Hmm.
just looking at it going, oh, okay, yeah, I can see the connection. Now, what am I going to do about it is the next step. But there are many patients who haven't made that connection because nobody's really discussed it with them. Nobody's really kind of shone any light on it. It's like trying to find your way around in the dark in a maze without a flashlight, you know?
Yeah.
So,
Exactly. And often chronic pain comes with a feeling of helplessness. And
mhm,
sometimes just picking one thing that you can do actually shifts you physiologically
mhm,
towards action. And action can really help to come out of there. Yeah. So I just want to address that. Yeah, it's a catch 22. Pain causes stress, and that causes more pain, which causes more stress. Yes. So that's where we look at the whole system and we try to uh, calm down the whole system. And if you haven't done the empowered relief class yet, that would be the one where you come away with those tools and a better understanding of how that works. And I
mhm,
guess what I'm saying is if you've got pain and stress, and you're stressed because of your pain, of course, that goes hand in hand. Take that opportunity to say, okay, I'm going to reduce my stress. And I'll give you three tools right now. One is just to start breathing a little bit slower, a little bit deeper, even for a period of 5 minutes, and relax. Let's try it right now. If everybody wants to just take a deep breath in, if you can, and just notice your body. On your exhale, let it out of your mouth. Let your shoulders, your jaw, and any muscle tension that you can to just to relax a little bit, to let go. And I'm going to invite you to do that one more time. Just take a deep breath in. Often we're not breathing when we're bracing against pain. On the exhale, out of your mouth, relax what muscle tension you can. And if you kept going with that, over time, you are going to shift your baseline stress point. So, yeah. So, another thing is to join one of Juliet's relaxation class. That's tomorrow at 10. And absolutely empowered relief. Yeah. So it is about calming the brain and the body, but it is also about challenging yourself as well. And I just want to say first, you might need, if you're very active, if you have been quite busy, um, yeah, then you probably want to start by focusing in on those periods of time where you can start to calm and relax yourself. So, yeah, I just want to see what Lisa says. Continually changing positions, it's tough. Keeps pain tolerable. The more I keep lightly moving with rests in between, the better. Okay. Yeah. I like that you said with rests in between. So make sure, because it's all about pacing yourself, lightly moving all day, all night. But yeah, it's not sustainable. I need a good sleep. Yeah. Yeah, I think we should probably do a class on sleep pretty soon. Yeah, one of the things you can do is, if you can, again, we're talking about 1 degree course corrections, just a micro movement to maybe extend a little bit of the rest time and extend a tiny bit of the rest time so that your body starts to acclimatize to that. So you might need to spend some time in the calming and down the system before you introduce challenging yourself. But tonight, what I want to bring in is an idea that I have just been learning so much more about from Dr. Eleanor Stein, who is going to be our guest in January, that I'm very excited about. She lives with a chronic condition and she's a psychiatrist. And it's something called hormesis. And for those of you that just need to calm and relax your nervous system, just continue doing that until you have a baseline. But we can also bring in this idea of intentionally stressing the system for short periods of time to build resilience and increase capacity. So this is why I'm bringing this here tonight. And there's a picture of the coral reefs there. We know that the coral reefs, when they've had, it's just an analogy, a storm, when they've had some stress on them, when they've had some challenges, they tend to grow back the next year even more beautiful and more resilient. And it is the same with human beings as we move along this path. So hormesis can really help us. For those of us, we're told to exercise or to move more. And sometimes, if you have chronic fatigue or you're struggling with long COVID, they're really looking at this, or chronic pain. Some people can't really move quite yet. So it comes from this phrase that the dose is the poison, and I just want to qualify that. So hormesis enhances overall health and activates these adaptive responses like the coral reef, slows aging, and makes us more resilient to future stress. Okay, now what is it? I see Grace mentioned high intensity interval training. Yeah, absolutely. That is a form of hormesis. Not sure I would recommend that for if someone's struggling with chronic pain, but it's the same pattern. And I'm going to show you different ways that you might be able to bring it in. So the hormetic or hormesis zone is in the middle. So you're not doing nothing, which would be down at the bottom, and you're not extending or stressing yourself for long periods of time, because we know that chronic stress is not good for anything or anyone. But you want to find a threshold in the middle where you touch up and you come back down, and you touch up and you come back down. So it's challenging the body. And it doesn't always mean exercise. You okay if I take the slide, Mark? I think it was
Sure.
yours, but okay. Yeah. So this is the thing that I found out, and then I'm going to touch for a few minutes on emotions. Challenging the body doesn't always mean exercise. There are many ways we can expand and build resilience, because these things actually activate the same pathways, even though they seem unrelated. So when we look at things, the other ways that we can activate the same pathways are, well, we don't want to probably be doing high intensity workouts, if we're not if we're not even, if movement hurts. And we
But
probably, I don't
small
know,
amounts are probably good, just, I mean, everybody has their own
small
threshold
amount.
for high intensity workouts. I mean, somebody's
That's
might
true.
just be, walking to the mailbox or just like doing something as opposed to doing nothing or doing very little.
Totally.
It's really important. Everybody is different. So
I
yeah.
was I was thinking of like how, the high intensity workouts that are like, that you see that are more popular, of like really intense workouts. But yeah, but absolutely intermittent, like walking to the mailbox and back, and making sure that you rest in between.
Yeah.
But these are some other ways that you can activate the same pathways that um, I'm only finding out about now. Eating colorful vegetables challenges your body. Things like turmeric, garlic, broccoli sprouts, these types of things increase your hormetic zone. Intermittent, intense breath work. We've got a class coming up. I hope you'll go on the calendar and look at the last Wednesday in November. We've got one of those classes coming up. And I think the research is showing us, it's pretty new, that it's helpful. Performing tasks and taking breaks. So pacing. Exposure to cold or hot temperatures. So some of you like, being in heat. Some of you prefer being in cold. You might start taking a cold shower for 30 seconds each morning. So all of these things take us a little bit out of our comfort zone, and start challenging our body within our nervous system within a tolerable range. So there's probably a lot more that we could talk about with that, but these are some of the things that we're finding out. More related to movement will be next week. So,
So there's a lot you can
the
do
last thing I want to talk about, what?
there's a lot you can do besides high intensity interval exercise, right? I mean, these are some great examples, but I think what you're trying to say is just small doses of this can maybe wake up parts of us that need to be stimulated, that can help bring about some repair. This is not a marathon. It's just in small doses, whether any one of these is a great example, just to break that routine. Because if you don't, it's almost like you're stuck in this cycle,
Yeah, exactly. And it doesn't seem related to pain, but it actually is. The last part I want to just touch on tonight is the emotional part. We don't have a class running right now on emotions, but we do run emotional awareness and expression, because if any of you have the Curable app or have heard about some of this work, we're finding it's very promising in the area of chronic pain. So yeah, just for yourself to find one of these hormetic strategies that you can tolerate and benefit from. And so to think about where you can increase this hormetic stress for short periods in time in your own life, to build your resilience to stress and manage physical and emotional pain better. So here are some recommendations around the emotional piece. It's not so much about avoiding stress, or sometimes you do want to avoid that one particular person that just stresses you out every single time, and there's nothing wrong with that. You're allowed to do that. Nobody says you have to tolerate. But when we have recurring difficult emotions, we might want to practice feeling them in tolerable doses within a safe range for short periods of time. And this is what we do in one of the classes. So how do we relate this to emotions? And this is where we can kind of move into that emotion, because it takes a lot of energy and resistance, tension, in other words, um, to keep down the sadness or to keep down the anger or the frustration. It's really important to have some kind of safe outlet for yourself. So one thing is just taking the time to feel yourself, to process and write out a dose of anger. It actually gives us increased access to joy. Talking to someone about how you feel, somebody you trust, and then treating yourself to a rest after. So allowing yourself to feel or grieve someone or something, I want to make clear, is not feeling sorry for yourself. And I just don't like that. I just dislike that phrase, feeling sorry for yourself, because sadness and grief is a very important emotion that often comes along with chronic pain when we've had some losses. So in your own time, in a very safe and caring way, perhaps allowing yourself to feel some of that, for a period of time, for a short period of time, if you can, and then shift to rest or treating yourself to a nice cup of tea or something afterwards. So you can see how that balance can be helpful. You might imagine, if you have something stressful going on in your life, you've got someone maybe that you work with or somebody in your family, you don't know how to say something to them, how to express something to them. You can also start to imagine yourself. The imagination is very strong in terms of practice. So to imagine things that seem difficult or stressful and feel what you would feel and move through it in your imagination a number of times can help you to move towards that action. And that goes for movement as well, that I'm sure Neil will touch on next week.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to just touch on the emotional piece around pain tonight. We've covered a lot, I think. And I'll pause for a moment. We'll probably go 2 minutes over time. See if there's any questions coming up around that. Just, kind of being good to yourself. Okay. So scaffolding internal and external challenges, it really is self-care. So I always imagine us as kind of like jellyfish, although I wish we could move that smoothly and effortlessly, but we expand and then we contract, and we expand and then contract. If we're always contracted, it's probably not good. If we're always expanded and active, that can also lead us into burnout and flare-ups. So think about this movement. And one of the movements you can always do that's expanding into contracting is breath work, is breathing. So make sure right now, check in with yourself. Are you breathing? Or are you holding your breath? Do you breathe short and shallow? And just start to expand and deepen your breath. That's always a good start. So that was probably a lot of information in our chronic pain primer central sensitization class, with an added piece at the end this week, just for fun, because we do it every month and it's nice to kind of talk about something a little bit different.
Mm-hmm.
So just checking in, we are at 7. If there's any kind of burning questions. I see, recommending Juliet's class. Absolutely. She's wonderful and very supportive. And Paul, if cold triggers lead to painful flare-ups, don't do them. Don't do them. If you really want to do them for short periods of time. Yeah, so you might want to expand into more heat. You might want to try a sauna for a period of time. You really have to find out, like Mark said, it's very personal. So finding out what works for your body. Good. Okay. So everyone, make sure that you're familiar with the class calendar on the website, and sign up for the newsletter. I send out an email about once a week telling you what's coming up. Empowered Relief is on the 22nd. That's a class that's recommended for everyone, and also the breathwork class at the end of the month.
Right.
Mark, just a very quick question here. If you from Daryl, what happens if you sleep too much? He had a major head injury. Do you? Does it relate that way as well? Would you then?
Yeah. What do you mean by, are you talking like more than sort of 8 hours a day, or because that also interrupts your whole sort of circadian rhythm, you know, which is sort of a natural rhythm that your body gets into with sleep and wake. So I think it is important not to oversleep, and have that looked at, if there's an underlying cause, because your nervous system almost goes into hibernation. Well, not your nervous system, but your body goes into hibernation. Then, it's not really, you don't have that normal rhythm throughout your day. So yeah, I would say probably not a good thing.
One thing that our sleep expert, Chris, always says is if you have, sleep issues, absolutely. If you're waking up through the night, you're sleeping too much, you're not sleeping enough, you have, you wake up startled, like sleep apnea, go and have a sleep study. And he always says, don't ever hesitate to get yourself in for a sleep study.
Absolutely.
Because they're really fast. It seems they used to be getting you in, and it's a chance to uncover anything, and they'll give you recommendations from what they see as well.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah, that's a really good suggestion, because there might be something that's undetected without a sleep study. So because our sleep apnea can lead to poor sleep and then feeling of fatigue throughout the day. So you need to sleep more as opposed to sleeping efficiently. Yeah. Okay. Good.
Yeah. They take all the little brain waves, and
Thanks everybody for joining us. That's been great.
Good.
And
all right. Thanks everyone.
Just and I would encourage people just to sign up on the front of the web page at the bottom to the newsletter, or not the newsletter, but the weekly emails, so that they are aware of some of the classes coming out. Good. Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, thanks for coming, and hope to see you again. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.